To a car person, the word longtail evokes images of an iconic era of Le Mans, where the likes of the Porsche 911 GT1 and Mercedes CLK GTR went head-to-head with McLaren's game-changing F1. Nowadays, longtail or LT is to McLaren what RS is to Porsche. So far, just 2 McLarens have been deemed worthy of the LT name, and like the mighty F1 they're named after, some claim they've changed the game in their respective sectors, and finally brought some much-needed character to McLaren's road cars. Today, we've got them both together to see how McLaren's new baby LT stacks up against the car that revived the LT name. I couldn't really decide which one to start with, so we've gone in chronological order. Based on the 650S, just 500 LT coupes were made. The list price in 2015, when they were new, was about 260,000. I remember them going for as much as 400 grand. Now, just a few years later, you can get them for less than half that. So we actually have this car for a couple of months thanks to a really generous SCD member. You can find him on Instagram at TooManyCarsOfficial, which is a pretty self-explanatory name. And when we asked about how many miles we could do, what we could use it for, all he said in response was, as long as you rag it, I don't care. And this is a pretty special LT as well. It's one of a handful of cars with the gold engine bay, like the original F1. It has the P1 style wheels, these P1 seats, which are really nice. And of course, a pretty cool number plate as well. I think this is the best looking McLaren they've made yet. It's really purposeful, but it's elegant as well. And I've just always fancied a going one. So, let's see what it's like. It has a smidge more power than the 650S at 675 PS or 666 brake horsepower, but the extra power doesn't even scratch the surface of the changes. It's 100 kilos lighter than the 650S, just 1,320 kilos, which is almost as light as the original Cayman. And whilst the engine does come from the 650S, over 50% of the components are new, and it just takes on a whole new character. The pops on the gear changes, see if we can do it. Such a sharp engine for a turbo. It needs to build boost low down, but God, when it does, you better be ready. Now, it goes without saying, it is fast. 0 to 62, 2.9, 0 to 124 in 7.9. It's the sort of acceleration that just picks you up, throws you down the road, and things just come at you at such a pace. You change gear, it just keeps going at the same rate. It's relentlessly fast. The tyres need some heat in them. Yeah, it is lively. You have to be careful getting on the power out of corners. But I like that. I like the challenge. For a lot of people, this transformed their opinion of McLaren because no one ever denied the 12C and 650S were really capable, really fast. You know, they had brilliant engineering, but they left a lot of people a little cold. You know, compared to the character of something like a 458 with a screaming naturally aspirated V8. You know, some people thought they were a bit boring. You cannot say the same of this. It just feels so racy. Even the seating position, you sat raked back, the wheels close to you, your legs are out, you're almost like an F1 seating position. And the driving experience matches that. It's quite noisy in here. The only thing you might say is, like a lot of modern cars, it's just a little too fast to enjoy on a road like this. You know, on a country road where you might be flat in a Cayman GT4, you're at half throttle, 4,000 revs, and absolutely flying still. But the nice thing about this compared to most modern cars with so much power is that it still rewards you at a low speed because the steering's so nice. It's quite greasy today, but I've got a lot of confidence. You can feel what's going on. You almost steer it with your mind. It takes such small little movements. You can be so accurate with it. And just all the different noises, the whoosh from the turbos, the upshift pops. You don't have to be absolutely flat to enjoy it, but then when you do get flat, it pretty much takes your breath away. You know, a lot of the time I feel like in a Lamborghini or the Viper ACR we had, you get thrown around all over the place on roads like this. You get thrown off course, where the LT sort of takes it in its stride. Can't see a thing out of the back with the air brake up in aero mode, but I guess that makes it feel even more special. And it is a properly special car. And I think it shows how good it is, that it doesn't need an absolutely wailing V10 or V12 to be special. The car's special in its own right, and I don't quite get why they've dropped in money so much, especially when they're so rare. I would absolutely have one of these in my ultimate garage. So 600 LT. After the 675, it obviously has quite a lot to live up to. So we've given it a little advantage being a Spider. This is an SCD member's car, and this is actually one of his first drives in it today, and he's really generously allowed us to drive it as well. It's January, it's freezing, I don't have much insulation on the top of my head, but you've got to have the roof down, haven't you? So based on the 570S this time, the Sport Series car, the 600 LT isn't limited in numbers like the way the 675 was. And the new price is about 70 grand less than the LT was, about 188 grand plus options. Now you can already get them about 30 grand under list. But what we find quite interesting is that a new one of these is basically the same money as a used 675. So, you know, if you were looking at either one of these cars, you could quite easily consider the other one. So let's see how they compare. Just like the 675, I think this looks great. I've always liked the compact size of the Sport Series McLaren's, the 570s, but it is a little bit more fussy than the 675. You've got the big diffuser at the back, the wing, but it does look purposeful, definitely. And in Papaya Spark, bright orange, obviously it suits it. And those top exit exhausts are so cool, aren't they? Rather predictably, 600 PS, 592 horsepower from its similar 3.8 twin-turbo V8. And surprisingly, being the smaller car, this is actually marginally heavier than the 675 at 1,350 kilos. But like the 675, it's 100 kilos lighter than the car it's based on. And like the 675, it's fast. It is absolutely rapid. 0 to 60 is the same 2.9. 0 to 124 is just 0.3 seconds behind the 675. It doesn't quite hurl you towards the horizon with the same sort of rabidness, but it is seriously fast. And being the Spider, with the exhaust right behind me, the noise is even more. Those downshifts. Oh, I hope that comes over. Wow. The sound is what makes this car having the roof off. I'm absolutely freezing, but whatever. I'm not really fussed when I can hear that. Oh. Handling. I'd say the steering isn't quite as quick as the 675. You need to turn it a little bit more. That's no bad thing. Feels like it has a little bit more weight to it, which might be the Trofeo R tyres this is on, rather than the 675's regular P0s. But just like the 675, and unlike most modern cars, it has this natural feel to it. You've got confidence with what's going on at the front end, even though you're on semi-slicks on a greasy day. Oh my God. I wonder if the 675 Spider sounds like this, or if they've turned the wick up on the 600 with the noise. You don't get the same upshift cracks, but the downshifts are just mega. Now, having to think about which you would go for over the other, I did ask Tony, the owner of this, and for him it was purely just how cheap you can get them on finance. You can guarantee that you're not going to lose too much money. You actually know how much you're going to lose up front rather than taking a gamble on buying a used car. Somehow I still think the 675 is the slightly more special car. Probably because it's a little bit more intimidating on a road like this. You're sort of tiptoeing around at part throttle sometimes and still going really fast. Where this, you can really get up it. Yeah, I think this is actually more suited to an English B road like this than the 675. But it's just not quite as terrifying as the 675, so I guess it depends what you want. You know, it's even starting to rain now, but if you want, you can put the roof up and have the back window down, so you still get the cracks from the exhaust. Like, it doesn't scream like a GT3. But these whip cracks, they mean you don't feel too shortchanged for having turbochargers. These two are exceptionally fast and capable, but you knew that already. What's refreshing about both of them is that, unlike so many cars these days, they're still rewarding at 5/10. For those moments you can actually get your foot flat, they're truly explosive. Either way, you get a lot of car for your money in the current market, whether it's cash or the crazy finance deals that are out there on brand new 600 LTs. A thread on our Facebook group seems to suggest people are paying in the region of £800 a month for these, with £30,000 down, with the aim of basically handing the car back after 2 years of fun. As for the 675, massive depreciation from the premiums of the early days mean it's a seriously special machine for the money, especially with such limited numbers produced. The 600 LT is a seriously impressive bit of kit. The sound from the top-mounted exhaust is addictive, and over a road, it might even have the edge thanks to its more accessible nature. But I love the 675 and the ferocious way it goes about its business. It gives you confidence, but there's always an underlying threat just telling you to respect it, and that makes it truly exhilarating. For me, the 675 LT will remain one of McLaren's most highly regarded cars for years to come, and one day we'll look back and say, remember when you could get one of those for less than 200 grand? Right, let's put the roof up. I can't feel my head.